I do game development both professionally and as a hobby, so I end up watching a lot of game dev YouTubers. I figured it might be fun to make some reaction videos, so today I'll be reacting to Polymars. This video is named Can You Do Game Development Without Crunch, which I think is an interesting topic. I've debated with people about this before, so let's see, I guess.
Video game development is marked by incredibly long hours, fighting exhaustion as you push further and further beyond your breaking point. This is crunch.
Now, for me personally, this isn't something that always happens. It's sometimes when I'm close to a deadline and I really need to finish something, or if I'm working on a really difficult task and I just need to take the time and just stay focused for the entire duration. Now, this doesn't work for everyone, and if done for an extended period of time, this can be very unhealthy. But it's not necessarily something that's inherently bad.
And most games of any scale rely on it, whether you're an employee at a AAA studio or a hobbyist in a game jam. But can you make a game without crunching? Theoretically, yes. Once you come up with a game idea, you can divide it into tasks and estimate how long each task will take to figure out how long it will take to make your game. Then you just divide those hours over a realistic time frame, say a week.
I have a 37.5-hour work week, so I would instead have allocated time to spend on the projects each week and then work on the project based on the estimate. The problem, of course, is that you can't really make reliable estimates. Even if you add time for unforeseen events, that won't always be enough. Sometimes you just have a bad day and it just slows down your productivity to a halt, and that is completely valid. Sometimes you'll look at the estimate, see that you don't have enough time, and it's, at least in a professional setting, it's important that you're just open about it and try to ask for help, or maybe recommend cutting the feature if it's something that's maybe not worth the effort.
So act fast and use the link in the description to get your very own Polymars.
Wait.
It's been 4 months since this video released, so I don't think I made it.
Following my theory, I spent a lot of time Monday just planning and scheduling everything. This part is key if I want to finish in time, and 100 plushies are on the line.
Planning is definitely important when you try to make something fast. The time I made 6 games in 12 hours, I made sure to spend a lot of the early time just planning what to make.
I was actually asked to participate in a game jam that lined up perfectly with this challenge, Replic's Kajam. So I figured why not take part and decided to make my game centered around its theme huge. And I've never coded in JavaScript before, so I'm gonna try and use their JavaScript game library. I mean, it can't be that hard, right?
Personally, I'm a big fan of using game jams as a chance to learn something. I know a lot of people have recommended not starting with a new game engine when you do a game jam, but I think it doesn't really matter if you finish a game or not, as long as you learn something from the game jam.
Anyway, here's my idea. This is you. And this, yeah, that's the skyscraper you have to climb. You constantly move back and forth along each floor, and the goal is to get to the highest floor possible by charging up hops and avoiding nosy tenants.
Programming-wise, it seems like a fairly simple game, which is very good when you're trying to learn a new engine in a limited time frame. Since everything except the jumping is at a constant speed, you could easily implement it without a physics engine and just do box overlaps. And if you do have a physics engine, you can just set all drag and friction to 0 and make the walls bouncy.
I sketched out this concept and went on to plan tasks for each day. My goal for Monday was just to set things up and create basic movement and player sprites. Luckily, I didn't have to spend too much time setting anything up. To use kaboom.js, you literally just have to make an HTML file and paste in a few lines of code.
I love when people put effort into making it easy and pain-free to set frameworks up. Sometimes you end up with dependencies on dependencies, and it's hard to tell where something went wrong, and you end up having to debug through very, very deep through the stack.
Trying to load a sprite was a bit more involved though, since I needed to set up a static file server to load local files. I ended up downloading some shady looking GUI program to do that, and now we have a square.
Just use Nginx, it's simple, it works. You just have a folder, you put everything you want to host in there, and you're done, basically.
And probably 20 viruses. Now let's make this square move with... Wait, that has to be a mistake. It can't have already been 2 hours. Oh no. Ignoring the fact that I was already behind schedule, I made my square move with the arrow keys. Then I gave it gravity and the ability to charge up jumps. Basically, while space is held down, I continuously increase a jump force variable, and once space is released, I set the player's Y velocity to that jump force. Then every frame I add the Y velocity to the player's Y position. But that's not very realistic. So I also have to add a fixed gravity to the Y velocity each frame, so the player will accelerate downwards if it's off the ground.
The way Polymars implemented gravity is frame rate dependent, so hopefully the game runs at the fixed frame rate. Since all the floors are equally spaced, I'm not entirely sure what charging up your jump actually helps.
None of this is really necessary since Kaboom has built-in physics bodies and colliders, but doing it from scratch is a lot of fun. Plus, my custom physics are obviously way better.
Though I'm all for having fun, I'm not sure Polymars should be wasting those precious 2 hours a day on implementing a custom physics engine.
Well... So I made 2 frog sprites in GIMP, one for when you're idle and one for when you're charging your jump. Then I turned them into a sprite sheet and divide them into separate animations in the code, playing the charge animation when space is pressed and the idle animation when space is released.
Personally, I'm purely a programmer, so I'm always amazed when people know how to make art assets or music assets themselves on top of programming the game.
And that was the 2-hour mark. We're about a day behind, but we should be okay since Friday was supposed to be for bug fixing, and let's be honest, I wasn't gonna fix any bugs anyway.
I mean, this is how it goes for game jam games usually. Even for commercial games, sometimes you just can't afford fixing bugs. Like, sure, it would be really nice to spend time to fix these bugs, but if people aren't buying the game and the bugs are fairly minor, not many people notice them, then are you actually going to earn back the time you spend on fixing the bugs?
I didn't have much time Wednesday because I was studying for an exam. Or, well, I was supposed to be.
Rest in peace, Technoblade. He was amazing and will always have my utmost respect.
But I made a sprite for a floor of the skyscraper and got it working in-game. Basically, I create a bunch of floors at the beginning of the game, and each time one goes off screen, I spawn a new one at the top of the screen. Then, I set the player's Y velocity to 0 if it collides with the top of a floor while moving downwards.
If the player moves too fast downwards, this will make the player just clip through the floor instead. But I doubt the player can actually get that high speeds before hitting a floor.
I think it's time to add enemies to the game. There's this really weird guy on Discord who always bullies me. So I drew an enemy sprite inspired by him and animated its walk cycle. And I'll be honest, this alone took 2 hours.
Here, for example, it would be really good to, while doing it, see that, oh, this is taking longer than expected, and then kinda stop doing it and just going for a simpler solution. But it's also only 2 hours, and it's not like you can spend that much time reevaluating during those 2 hours either.
Alright, as soon as I press this button, there is no going back. Let's do it.
Working as fast as possible, I separated the enemy sprite sheet into left-facing and right-facing walking animations. Then I made an enemy object that just moves back and forth and spawn a random amount on every floor. But it wasn't working. Okay. Dude, now is not the time for this. Please work now. Oh my god, Please work now. Please work now. Oh, thank you.
I can definitely sympathize with this. I've ended a lot of game jams with just frantically fixing bugs and begging them to work. I also tend to help other teams if it's an in-person game jam and just fix the more complex bugs that people encounter. So that's usually earlier during the game and not like the very end.
But there was no time to celebrate. I made a sprite with numbers 0 through 9, which I loaded in as a bit font to use when displaying the score. I add 1 to the score each time the frog's Y value exceeds that of a floor it hasn't passed through yet.
Just hard coding the score text to change the only place you change score is so much a mood.
With the UI there, the game was pretty much done, but something still felt off. Okay, jumping is just frustrating. It doesn't feel right. There's like no way to like gauge your jump. So in the last half hour, I made a meter to show how much your jump has been charged.
It's always important to give the player feedback whenever they do something. Personally, one thing I really would have wished for, if there had been more time, is having the frog get more and more squished the longer you hold the button.
And kindly asked my friend for some music.
Isn't it a bit late to ask for music 1 hour before the jam ends? Like, wouldn't it be better to ask fairly early on, so they actually have time to make it? Unless they have pre-made music, of course, which is completely valid too.
And did an absolute speedrun of making a title screen. And that was it. We did it. I was absolutely exhausted, meaning I kind of missed the point of this entire no crunching challenge. But let's be real, I just wanted to prove Bargy wrong.
I can definitely relate to this. Some of my free time projects that I do to relax end up making me more tired than I normally get from working a full day. I'll cut the video for now. That was interesting to watch. I don't know if I did the commentary thing well. This is my first ever commentary video, but make sure to check out Polymars and subscribe to Polymars. And if you liked this video, or want to see more or something, I don't know, please subscribe to me too. I need more subscribers. Yeah, something like that. Bye bye.